We've got a very special guest here today. We have DesMephisto. If you're not familiar with him, he is a World of Warcraft speed leveler, and I didn't know this was a thing until last night. But it's very cool because I'm actually quite a fan of speedrunning, as I've mentioned many times on this show. I love events like Games Done Quick, and I follow quite a few speedrunners, and I've always enjoyed it. Even tried my hand at it a couple of times. Decided it wasn't for me, but I am a fan of watching people do it. But speedrunning in an MMO is not something that I had really thought was something that people did, but apparently I was wrong. So we have DesMephisto with us. He's a World of Warcraft speed leveler. He's got 49 max level warrior characters in World of Warcraft. The warrior class definitely seems to be your favorite, and he's also an advocate for autism awareness, which is something that we're interested in as well, as many of you know. Syb is on the spectrum and talks about it fairly openly. In both cases, DesMephisto and Sybsidian. It wasn't diagnosed until adulthood. I'll stop talking now. Let DesMephisto talk. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. Hello, everyone. Haven't been sleeping much, but excited to be here.
Right on. Well, we're excited to have you. So let's talk a bit about what is speed leveling for anyone who's not familiar with it, and why do you do it?
So speed leveling in WoW is, well, like you, I've always been really into speed running, right? Like speed running seems like such an amazing concept. Awesome games done quick. All of it, it's been incredible. It's something that I've always wanted to do. And for me, leveling has always been very enjoyable. I've always enjoyed the process of leveling. I've enjoyed like the progression system. And as I did it more and more, I realized, like, what if I tried to be as efficient as possible, right? It's all about efficiency. So I kept doing it. And over time, I started to become like the fastest person at leveling. So it just became this whole kind of mini game in World of Warcraft that brought me joy. It brought me so much joy. It became kind of my special interest. And yeah, that's speed leveling.
Awesome. So you get characters from start to level 120,
right?
As fast as possible. Hey? And how long does that take?
My fastest time right now is 11 hours and 36 minutes, non-assisted. A non-assisted run would be not having anyone actually help you level up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So like you could get help from other players that boost your XP, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like the fastest assisted run right now is 8 hours and 44 minutes, and I was having someone like actually fly them places and kill stuff for them and that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So, and do you do these all at one stretch? Like you sit down for 11 hours straight?
Yeah, there was a point where it took 24 hours. That one was tough.
I was watching, you were streaming live last night, and I caught a bit of your live stream. Did you get your character to 120?
Yes.
Oh,
that run was so scuffed. I literally had to drag myself across the finish line.
It happens. I'm sure that happens to everybody. But yeah. So how often do you do these full like level 1 to 120 runs? Like you've got 49. So you have 49 warriors, and you said 50 some characters total?
I believe I have 54 to 55 max level characters. I just recently started World of Druids, which is similar to World of Warriors, the 49. World of Warriors is just, there's 46 combinations of gender and race. So now I'm doing the combinations for Druid.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
How many accounts do you have?
Just 2 for now.
Yeah, because I remember in some of the topic yesterday, they were like, oh yeah, we're lowering, or were they increasing the cap, or there was a question, I think it was Hazelnutty was asking a question about like raising the cap of like number of like characters that they can have on accounts or on specific servers or something like that. And I think they said 50 was in there, but I wasn't sure, is 50 the account cap or is 50 the server cap?
50 is the account cap.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Unfortunately, they're refusing to increase the account cap with very poor excuses. Their excuse was players sitting on names, hence why they won't do it. I don't want to have to pay for a second account
Mhm.
because that means I also have to pay for the expansion to do projects like
Mhm.
this. I don't like deleting my characters because like I achieved that. Like I achieved that. I like seeing it. It's very visual appealing to me. And I want to like, do like more of this world of, and I don't want to have to make a new account every single time I do a world of.
Yeah.
That's fair. It seems like they could address that by just saying, oh, if you've got like a low level character that you haven't played in X number of months, we'll just free up that name for somebody else. Like, it seems like there are ways they could address that. But anyway, let's talk. This is a good point to transition into what you've done for autism awareness. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the story about how you found out that you were on the spectrum, and then what you've been doing, and as you do a lot of work for charity, as speedrunners often do. It's quite a thing.
It goes hand in hand actually quite a bit.
Yeah, and then and the kind of effects that you've been seeing. I know I've definitely seen a world that I've learned a ton more about what autism is in the past few years, working with Syb, but also just in general, it seems to be awareness about what exactly it is growing, and it's not as misunderstood as it once was, although I think it's definitely still very misunderstood and occasionally used as an insult on the internet, which I hate. I hate seeing that. But yeah, let's sorry, I've kind of cluttered that question up, but yeah, why don't you talk about how you discovered that, because you were diagnosed as an adult, how you discovered that you were on the autism spectrum, and then what you've done with it since.
So I always knew something was wrong. There were things that bothered me, things that I couldn't do that everyone else could do. It always felt like I was a bit on a delay as well. Like things like I wasn't able to read until 4th grade. I noticed similarities between me and my uncle who is mentally challenged, and I noticed some of these aspects. Which, of course, with my uncle, there was a lot of negative association. So I learned to kind of mask any behaviors we may have shared. And over time, I always felt like it started to become kind of ingrained. Like I was just this weird person. I wasn't good at making friends. I, couldn't fit in. And, I was like, oh, it's probably just ADHD, which is what I was diagnosed with. Over time, as I graduated from college, which this is actually not uncommon, we learn all the tools and techniques to be able to be successful in school. And then as soon as we're in the real world, we can't adapt, or we can't acclimate to the workforce. We can't like fit in. And I started experiencing something that a lot of autistic people do, is autistic burnout. So we'll see regression of our behaviors, things like being able to drive, things like being able to go out, being able to handle loud sounds. A lot of these masking tools that we've developed because of the dramatic change of going from something we're familiar with to something we're not. This is usually how a lot of autistic adults end up getting diagnosed. They might have been able to develop this masking property while they were young. They become adults to go into the workforce. I didn't finish college until I was 25, or no, 27. Yeah, 27. So it took a long time for me to actually go out into the world, hence why I have such a late diagnosis. And with that, one of the first things I saw is that it is incredibly hard to get a diagnosis as an adult. There isn't a lot of adult criteria for autism. It's mainly focused on children, right? So if I was to go able to get diagnosed, they will give me the same diagnosis or the same criteria as they would give a child. And so that child might not have developed masking aspects. Yeah. It doesn't quite translate the same way. And it's a major issue. Plus, there's a lot of stigma towards diagnosing adults with autism because it's seen as taking resources away from children. And it's a major issue because, again, also, but a large majority of people only care about autistic children, right? All the energy, all the effort, everything that goes into it is for childhood autism. As soon as you're an adult, you kind of stop existing. And it's one of the reasons why it's so important for me to support Autistic Self Advocacy Network, which is a charity ran by autistic adults focused on trying to have a conversation about us. They're saying is no conversation about us without us. So going to Washington Washington D.C. and like lobbying, trying to get autistic representation in there to actually have conversations about autism, to support us, to build us up by autistic people. And with that, I've pushed into charity work. There's a major lack of representation for autism altogether in gaming. We see a lot of charity events for St. Jude. We see a lot of charity events for Save the Children, for all these other things that mainly are focused on children. Which that's great, that's fantastic, but sometimes we got to get more representation out there. And so I've been fighting really, really hard to build that up. We've had a lot of success. Blizzard's taken notice. So Warriors for Autism is what I call it. It happens every April. Been working super hard on that, and I'm hoping to expand that into other games as well, because we need more autistic representation.
Yeah, there's some great comments and questions coming in our live chat right now that I want to read out quickly. Like just talking about the representation thing. I remember when The Big Bang Theory first came out, and it was being speculated that Sheldon was autistic. It was never addressed on the show, I don't believe. Mm-hmm. But there was some speculation because he exhibited a lot of behaviors of people on the spectrum, and then there was a kind of a debate, I remember, about whether or not this was offensive or not. How do you feel about things like that, or how could representation or acknowledgement of autism in pop culture be done better, in your opinion?
So currently, off the top of my head, there are at least 4 major representations that I know of. Sheldon is an example, and it's kind of the atypical, like what you think about autism, right? It's okay, they're gonna have poor social skills, they're gonna be very obsessed about certain things, and they're going, because of the poor social skills, they're gonna come across as kind of blunt or asshole-ish. Right. So it highlights a lot of the negative aspects of autism rather than uplifting the kind of positive aspects.
That's one of the things that I faced with, and one of the was having this conversation with Luna last night, and it's like, one of my biggest faults is that I don't understand, nor do I intend it, but I can be extremely condescending at times. But to me, condescension is something that it really doesn't exist. Like it really doesn't, like it's something that I struggle with understanding. Wait, what is condescension? And I have had people try to explain it to me multiple times. Never get it. I never get it. I don't understand when people are being condescending to me, and I don't know, or it's certainly not intentional when I am being condescending to other people. And it's been a constant issue for strife and difficulty.
It's very true. Well, you and I have had to deal with that early on,
multiple times.
Early on in our working on the channel, I used to get super offended by certain things that Syb would say. I've learned to speak his language a lot more, and Syb, I believe, has also learned to. We've learned to understand each other in a way that. So I understand when he says something that, from most people, I would take offense to. I don't take offense to it because I know that's not how he means it, and so I've appreciated learning from it from that perspective, because it also, I have met so many people that are on the spectrum, autism or Asperger's. I'm not even sure how those break down these days. They keep changing, it seems, but online, fellow content creators, people in our Discord community, people who are significant others of people in our Discord community. And then people we've met live at events. Syb, we did a live event once highlighting autism in anime, I think it was, and the place was packed. The room was just packed. And then we've had people come up to us after our sessions at conventions and things, and Syb will usually mention that he's autistic at some point, and then we'll have other autistic people come up and say, "Hey, I'm so glad you acknowledged this, and can I talk to you about this for a bit?" And it's fantastic. Yeah, let's get into some of the questions and comments that are coming in from our live chat right now. So, Robin Green says, isn't this just poor training for doctors? That's I believe the whole issue with getting diagnosed as an adult.
It's partially it's poor training, but it's a lack of understanding too, right? Psychiatry has a major issue with being like 20 years behind. Things like addiction, the definition for addiction, it pretty much applies to everything. There's a lack of actual kind of understanding, and of course research as well. Understanding of autism has increased a lot. Like autism didn't start to become very popular until about like 2000. I say popular, like actually like being diagnosed. And so there's a lot of information that's still not known, and there's not a lot of research going into how to actually diagnose autistic adults. So it's still like very outdated.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. And so I really appreciate seeing things move forward.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Time Bean says, I have big heart feels for this issue. DesMephisto, my significant other, has struggled with this for so long, and he is brilliant and wonderful. So, message of encouragement for you there. Because, yeah, it really is a struggle. It really is. And I've known Syb for years. And by the way, like when you were describing yourself as a child, it almost sounded like you were reading from his autobiography. Like it's so similar to his story about his childhood. And I've known him since we were both teenagers and watched him struggle to be friends, to be social, and to be, to maintain relationships has been very, very difficult for him. And so it's good to sort of understand why. Like I'm really glad that I've learned that I know what I know now, and I wish more people understood, basically. Because, I have a quality friend in Syb, and it sucks that a lot of people have missed out on that, because, they've been off-put by certain aspects of this, you know what I mean? Ali Mahfouz asks, how do people with autism do as parents? And I actually don't know. I know you're married, DesMephisto. Do you have children?
Not yet. I'm actually really terrified to have children. When I was younger, the only thing I ever wanted to be was a father.
Right.
As I've gotten older and I've seen my behaviors, it's scary, right? Like autism has both really, really positive sides, and it has some really negative sides, things like meltdowns. There have been times where I've gotten so overwhelmed that I've just started punching myself in the head. And
I've been there.
And doing that in front of a child it's a terrifying idea to me, and I really want to be a father one day, but I don't want to put my problems on someone else like that, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I like that they're just a child. Like I can't, like my wife chooses to love me, right? Like a child doesn't really get a choice.
Wow, that's
well, I can just to pop in with this is like I can guarantee you that that all children don't look at parents like that. I heard it put really well by somebody who recently actually got axed from YouTube in a brutal way. But it's like your child and your interaction with them is as long as you're doing your best in whatever situation you're in with, is exactly 100% what that child needs, and there's nobody else who can fulfill that role from that particular perspective, because there's only you and the other parent are the only two parents that this child will ever have, and the only in that scenario as they're growing up, right? And that is, and that's kind of where the way I look at it, it's always they're always going to view you in that way, and nobody can ever replace that.
This is an amazing conversation, honestly. Because I definitely, I don't fully understand that struggle, but I respect it, and I respect how torn you feel. We've got also Time Being in the chat saying this is making her tear up because this is very relevant to her own situation, and one of the reasons her and her partner decided not to have kids. And I can't imagine how painful that is. I am a father myself, and my kids, I'm not even remotely on the autistic spectrum, but I have I do deal with depression, and my kids have seen me at my worst. And yeah, you don't want them to see you like that. But like Syb said, also, this is too big of a conversation to address here. But I guess what I don't want to see is I don't want people who have these mental, whatever it may be. I don't want people in that group, I guess, to think, oh, we can't have kids. I mean, obviously, you make the right decision for your personal situation, and nobody can tell you that's wrong, right?
Right.
I think this is an amazing topic that needs to be discussed. Sadly, I don't think we have. It's too big for this podcast. Let's put it that way.
Back. One of the things that we want to start doing is hosting a couple of events where we really dig into this. And one of the reasons why I was so happy to like get in touch with you is because it's the beginning of just so much that I think we can do from both our end, and then also like the more interactions that we can have with the community on this level. So yeah, it's really cool because again, I'm always astounded by the, I have a community group that I haven't been to for a while, mostly just due to time constraints, but it's like sitting around and it's like seeing stuff, work. And then I get very angry. There was somebody who tried to combine an insult and just was virtue signaling terribly in like, hey, we shouldn't call these people this because they remind me of like autistic people, and we should definitely not conflate the two together. But, because that would be, and the way that it came across was like, it was a total like, hey, well, now guess what? You just invented a new slur for autistic kids. It's like, it was so aggravating, but it's the community that pushes back against this kind of stuff. And I was so happy to see the response to that, where the vast majority of people looked at that and said, well, now you're just creating a problem where there wasn't one before, and you're going to end up hurting people more because of this. And then they really had this like pretty positive come together moment in calling this out, because it's like, this isn't helpful in this particular regard. It was done so poorly and so with a fair amount of like arrogance and like I'm better than you kind of feeling. Time Bean knows what I'm talking about. That it was in Destiny 2, and it was just like it was so bad. You really wonder how somebody can actually like type that down and then send it. And then they say that we're the ones with mental illness. Sometimes
it's unbelievable sometimes. And even just the prevalence of using the term autistic as an insult is still disgusting. I mean, for one thing, autism has some downsides. It has some upsides too. I don't want to overgeneralize, but I know like with Syb, his ability to analyze and process and really crunch numbers and crunch data is a byproduct of being on the spectrum. And it has some upsides and it has some downsides, and I think we need to. I personally feel like we need to stop looking just at the negative side of it. And how do you feel about that?
Sorry, just quick kind of aside. So autism isn't a mental illness. So it's a neuro, like I'm not trying to, or
no. Yeah, I use that because it's the quickest way. But yeah, no, it's not a mental illness in the same sense as you have like depression or anxiety in things that are caused by mental imbalances. Like we're just Max Derat is a big autistic channel, and Max himself he insists that it's be referred to as just being differently wired. And
right, it's a neurological disorder.
Yeah. And so it's like the wiring allows us to do certain things, but then makes other things more difficult. And that's kind of really what that's how I typically try to approach it. But we get it's sometimes it's difficult to like get caught up, because it's like still meet people who don't really understand that Asperger's has been renamed under autism, and I still have doctors or like medical personnel who are going now, is that autism or is that Asperger's? It's like, well, technically it's the same thing now, because, and that's not our rules. That's what the practitioners came up with to do.
So I know.
it's just difficult and trying to like get that trying to get that understanding through correctly is certainly not easy to do, and I mean I get tripped up by it too, but yeah, no, it's not in the same sense.
The distinction between like autism, Asperger's, low function, mid functioning, high functioning autism, we're all autistic, right? Like literally these words are not about how we experience our autism, but how others experience. So if we're called high functioning, if it's called Asperger's, it's others see, okay, well, they appear to be mostly functioning, when in reality, that's often not the case. So it's important to kind of just bring that back down to just the autism umbrella, because we should all be seen as autistic.
And the individual, like, we want to put everything in neat little boxes, but that's not always the case. As someone was pointing out in chat, like, and if you look at everybody on the autism spectrum, there's going to be, like, they're individuals. They're diverse individuals, each with their own situation, and need personalized care. Like, you can't overgeneralize. And yeah, the distinction between a mental illness and a neurological disorder is, I think a lot of lay people don't understand the difference. I don't even know that I would have necessarily, I don't even think I could tell you off the top of my head what the difference is. So clearly lots of education to still happen on this topic for sure.
So mental illness is something that happens to you due to stress or other issues. So like things like trauma, like lots of things going on, PTSD, etc. Those things are things that affect your mind over time. Whereas
we want to point out rectful here, stuff like that. It's like, and that's, and that I mean, it's a huge distinction, and it's really important to try and be as accurate as you can. But also, it's like, so Sword Sister is saying in the chat here, it's like, it's very confusing, and she feels a little guilty about not being able to, always easily differentiate those things. And to that, I would say, don't be, you don't have to have a master's degree in order to communicate with people on the spectrum. But don't feel like that lack of knowledge is something that is necessarily holding you back from when you see, every once in a while, in the mall or something like that, I see somebody who I immediately recognize as autistic being bullied by other kids. And it's like, don't feel the need to hold back because of something in that scenario, whether it's a family member or something that's happening in your workplace, adult, child. It's like, don't feel the need to hold back on trying to help necessarily when you have the opportunity to help, just because you don't know exactly the terminologies and that kind of stuff. Is like don't hold back on that. The best thing to do is to stick up and say something, or to do something quite directly, or to just be there as a friend.
Yeah,
like that's often the most important thing.
And I mean, exactly. There's a point where it's like, okay, regardless of why somebody's getting bullied, it's we should stand against that, because regardless if it's because they're autistic or because some other reason they're wearing weird shoes, whatever. That's just, there's certain things that it's not right to do to other people, regardless.
Exactly.
But yeah, as far as understanding, I mean, I think don't beat yourself up if you don't understand. If there's things you don't understand about autism, don't beat yourself up about it. Just try to be a good friend to people who are on the spectrum, and if you're so inclined, learn about it, talk to them. And I've learned most of what I know. Like, I studied psychology. I've read articles on what autism is, or at least what they considered it to be when I had my education. But I've learned the most about it by talking to people who are on the spectrum and who are, closely associated with people on the spectrum. And I've found that they're generally pretty open about it, and it's really hard to offend them by asking questions about it. In general, that's what I've found. Would you agree?
I absolutely would agree. I'd much rather someone just outright ask me about it, right? Like any opportunity I can get to help others understand. It doesn't matter if you consider your question like too rude or anything. Like, it's an opportunity to have a conversation about it. So I'm always happy for those situations.
Good to know. This has been fantastic. I think I'm gonna clip this out and make it its own video on our channel, because this, I think, it has been a fantastic discussion and is also a very important discussion, and one that's very relevant to a lot of people in our audience, obviously. So watch for that. I hope our audience will share it around, because I think this is a very important conversation to have. Is there anything either of you guys want to say to wrap this up?
I honestly think this is a very important conversation, and being able to talk about it more, being able to reach out more, like educating yourself on all this is always going to be difficult, but sometimes listening to autistic people is all it's going to take. This is just listen.
Something that everybody needs to do more of, I think, especially in the internet generation. Like, we live in an age of just yelling at each other on Twitter, and no progress is made that way. And
not at all.
No understanding happens that way. Just telling people what to think, telling people what. No. And that's why I'm so glad we have a Discord community that has been so positive and that's been so welcoming. And there's people in the chat right now talking about being on the spectrum that I had no idea, and being really open about it. So, I mean, and nothing but support right now. You look at our chat right now, nothing but positivity, nothing but support. I love it. And we are working hard to keep it that way.
So just to go back very quickly to the WoW thing before we leave that subject, you have managed to do something that is very difficult, and as far as I know, I don't know of anybody who's actually claimed this. It's one of those things where it's like there is a handful of people who've collected basically all achievements, but you have a sort of like, it's sort of an unofficial achievement, which I'm surprised, or maybe I'm not aware if there is actually a counter for it. But the plate armor, like, so as you play through the game, every time you pick up a piece of gear, if it's something that your character can wear, it's saved to their appearance library of like stuff that they can like transmog and like make if they pick up a really nice pink shield with a little spike on it, and they're like, wow, I really want to keep this down the road, they don't actually have to keep the actual physical item. That appearance is just added to their library, and then when they pick up something that they don't necessarily like, they modify it so that it looks like the one that they had gotten in the past, which is one of my favorite things with WoW, especially like coming back as like a player that stopped playing around Wrath. You have collected how many of the full plate collection?
So there's over 11,700 items, and I've collected all of them for the appearance tab. So I have 100% of all plate for warriors.
I think that's an achievement, because I tried to like come back, like I'm just kind of like perusing my list here right now, and it's like out of my chests I have 113 out of like 492, and it's like, oh wow, I have a lot of collecting to do to like even get close to that. And that's just like one category. Like gloves, I've got like 108 out of 450, and it's like, I was like, wow, this is quite, like, I thought I was like a pretty good collector, but sheesh, that's very impressive.
It is, as far as I know, it is a world first in World of Warcraft.
Well, if that's not an achievement, it should be for sure.
I completely agree. They recently came out that they don't want to add achievements for things like this because it can create unhealthy playstyles.
Yes, yeah. I mean, this is one of these things where it's like that I could definitely see as an unhealthy playstyle, just due to the sheer amount of like volume there is. Because the minute you do that, somebody out there is going to try and collect every piece of appearance in the entire game. And I could probably figure that they'd probably spend the bulk of the next several years just trying to do that, because the game has been out for over 15 years now. And at some point, somebody's going to run out of sanity trying to collect everything in the entire game. So,
yeah, I can see why, but that's quite an achievement. Oh, we had actually a couple of final questions for you, DesMephisto. Do you have any good resources that you could recommend for people who want to learn more about all of this, the autism stuff? And also, do you have any recommended charities? You mentioned one earlier, but go ahead and mention it again.
So yeah, actually, I don't have time to pull this up, but Autistic Self Advocacy Network actually has a small, I say book, but it's not quite a book. It's like maybe about 7-10 pages, somewhere around there, but on how to be an ally to autism. It's completely free. It's a PDF. You can go through those resources, and it just lets you know, like, it gives you a brief understanding of autism, what you can do to help. I'm a big fan of Autistic Self Advocacy Network. There's also Integrate Advisors, which help autistic people find jobs after college. A really important subject.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. For those of you who are on our Discord server, if you're not on our Discord server, you should join our Discord server. It's a great place. It's a place where you can carry on the conversations that we have on the podcast, or whatever else you want to talk about that's within sort of the realm of what we discuss. We've got lots of different topic rooms. And of course, Syb is very open about all of this. And, so if you ever want to ask him questions privately or even publicly, I'm sure he'd be willing to talk about it. Plus, there's many others in the community who are affected by this and are also showing themselves to be very open. It's a very accepting place for people who are dealing with these kinds of issues. So definitely recommend checking it out. Also, you can stay up to date there about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. So yeah, you can find the invite in the description below. And say hi to us in the welcome channel. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, sub, and hit that notification bell. And then check out some of these other videos. Find the link to our Discord server and other important stuff in the description below.
Rotate.